Hello, everyone, and welcome to our online message platform. We're so excited that you've decided to join us today. If you're new to Inland Hills Church, we are so excited that you are here with us today, and we want to get to know you a little bit more. So please take a moment to click the link below the video. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how we could be praying for you this week. If you call Inland Hills home, thank you for your continued partnership in giving with us today. You can continue to do so by visiting inlandhills.com/give. Now we are about to dive into an exciting message, and we just want to invite you to lean into the words that you are about to hear. It is our hopes that these words and this message uplifts you during the week ahead and just encourages you throughout whatever you are facing.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I am so honored to be here. Everyone here in the room and everybody listening in the studio, thank you for being here. Really excited. When I told my wife I was going to be here, she was pumped for me because she loves this church. I've been here a ton, and I know Chris really well. He loves the students here. And just like you mentioned, Pastor Eric, I worked with him at Mariners. He's just been a mentor of mine forever, almost from the very beginning when I started the church. So I texted him and told him, hey, I'm going to be at Inland Hills. Do you have any piece of advice? And he just gave me some simple things. He said, no, honestly, this guy's a leader of men. This is what he said. He said, make sure you prepare, because they know what good teaching sounds like. I don't know if that's a compliment to himself. He said, pray for them, because they need it. I don't know what that meant. And he said, whatever you do, don't tell them and my mustache is fake. So and I promised him that I wouldn't do that. So I want to take a look real quick at this question as we kick off this brand new series, Proverbs. Tell me the things that I'll preach, and hopefully this does. You'll tell me at the end. Have you ever watched someone else go down a predictable road? One time I was sitting at a Starbucks, and a car was pulling out, and I was sitting there, and for like a brief second, it's like I could see the future, because they weren't looking where they were going. They were pulling out, another car comes, and then boom, collision time. Like I could just see, it was predictable. I knew it was going to happen. When I was 28, I came into a little bit of money, and so I did some stock market stuff, thinking I was awesome, right? Because I saw this movie, and it worked for the guy in the movie. So I started doing some stuff, and the guy that I was working with was like, man, I wouldn't do that. And I'm just kind of hitting buttons like I'm playing Mortal Kombat or something, hoping it's gonna work into the super move. And he said, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And I ended up losing all the money, but he could predict that. It was obvious to him because he could absolutely see it coming. When I was 12, was really my first exposure to the idea of wisdom. First exposure. I was climbing a tree in my neighborhood. It was a huge tree. And it was one of those trees that all the guys in the neighborhood wish they had the guts to climb. And today was the day that I was going to show them that I had the guts to climb. And all the guys there were in the neighborhood. I'm 12 years old, so there were a lot of girls there in the neighborhood too, and I'm starting to kind of take some interest. And I really want to impress everybody. So I start climbing the tree, and I get pretty high, not to the top yet, but pretty high. And my mom comes running out and says, Justin, you need to get down right now. And I'm like, Mom, come on, you don't get it. She's like, no, this is not wise. And I'm looking at all the girls watching me, and I'm like, I don't think it'd be wise to come down right now. I gotta get to the top of this tree. And so I kept going, another branch, then boom, branch broke, I fell down, broke my arm. If anyone's ever broken an arm, that just is the worst. So went to the hospital, came home, sitting there with my mom, and I'm crying, right? Like I was crying when I hit the ground, and that's the opposite of what I wanted all the girls to see. And she starts telling me, like, man, I knew that was going to happen, Justin. I was trying to protect you from that. And I was like, well, how did you know it was going to happen? How did you know it was going to happen? And she had me pulling close, and she moved her arm over, and I never noticed. I don't look at the back of my mom's arms that much, so I never noticed it before. But she kind of pointed to this area, kind of covered with wrinkles and wisdom at this point, and she showed me the scar that she had from when she was climbing a tree and fell and broke her arm. And she said, I knew it was going to happen because it happened to me. One of the best things about wisdom is that we're able to go on this journey, hopefully with people who are a little further along than us. They've experienced this too. Wisdom impacts if you have it. It's a positive impact, and the lack of it has an impact on your life as well. It impacts your life regardless if you have it or don't have it. For those who have it, they know what it's like, right? And they've lived some years, they've seen some things. And the ones who don't have it, you are kind of maybe struggling through some stuff. You're trying to figure out, how did I get to the place that I am? I've arrived at this destination in my life. I don't really know how I got here. I think sometimes we say, people are wise beyond their years. But that ends up really just becoming this colloquial compliment that we pay people who make good decisions when everyone's standing around doesn't really know what to do. And they're really wise beyond their years. No. Years is what gives wisdom. People aren't wise beyond their years. They're wise because they've invested the years in learning. Now, here's the thing. I want you to write this down. It's going to be up here on the screen. Wisdom is a skill of living. It's a skill of living. They knew this back in the Old Testament, back in Proverbs, when Solomon is writing this. And when they talk about wisdom, they use the Hebrew word chokmah. Now, why don't you all say this with me? Really easy word, chokmah. Now, you're going to know if you're saying it right because the person in front of you is going to be like, wait, what's on my neck right now? Because you really got to, Hebrew, you really got to hit those letters. And they describe chokmah in this way. It is the skill, the developed skill in an area. So maybe your area is, woodworking, or your area is stonemasonry or business. You can have chokmah, wisdom, skill in that area. But in the book of Proverbs, they talk about this in the moral sense, the moral wisdom. So you can have both. You can be this skilled businessman having this chokmah and still lack the moral skill, the moral undertones that give you true wisdom. In the same way, you can be like this really great, businessman, but also, you lack that wisdom. So yeah, you have chokmah in this one area, but you lack it, the moral chokmah, the wisdom in this other area. Imagine this: you hire someone to kind of make, a statue of maybe yourself. Who doesn't want a statue of themselves? Eric has one. Who doesn't want a statue of themselves? It's a beautiful thing. And you hired the guy, and he comes and starts working for you, and he is talented. He knows exactly what materials to buy. He knows exactly how to do it. He has the crew together with all the right materials and protection equipment, and they have the plan, they've done the project managing, they have the budget set. But then when you get the bill is like 4 times what you expected. Now, the statue looks great, but the bill is like, what happened? What did you guys make? What is this? Well, yeah, he has chokmah in the skill sense, the gifting to do these things professionally. But he lacks the skill of chokmah morally, that he's dishonest, he's disloyal, he's not a good guy. They use this word, a really simple word. They use it all through Proverbs. The fool and the wise man. The word fool is a really simple word, okay? It's on the screen, eval. Okay, that's where if you do a little transliteration, that's where we see the word evil. Because there is a great joy and wealth to wisdom. And there is a folly and a disappointment and regret that comes with being foolish. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to give you just a quick overview of how we got to where we are in the book of Proverbs. And so I'm going to go through this story very quickly, so you have to pay very close attention. We're going to start in one of my favorite books, looking at this guy, David. David, if you remember David and Goliath, right? Big, tall guy, really short kid, killed him with a rock. Whole thing was nuts. Ends up becoming king, right? Totally crazy. Becomes king, and during the season when all the kings are off at war, which is the wise thing to do, he chose to do the unwise thing, stay at home in, idle hands, kind of create trouble. So he's staying at home and looking out the window of his house, and he sees this woman on the roof, and I'm not going to go into great detail. You can read it yourselves and imagine it, whatever. And so she's on the roof, and he says, oh, that girl needs to come over to my house, and she does, and they spend time together. Again, not going to go into great detail. There's kids in the room, right? But they spend time together, and then he gets word later that she is pregnant. Now, that's a pretty traumatic story. That's a pretty intense story to start off someone's life. Well, here's the thing. It actually goes even further. He conspires to kill this gal's husband in order to cover up everything that he did, all the wrongdoings that he did. In the next chapter, in chapter 12, Nathan, one of his close friends, Nathan has wisdom. Nathan comes to him, rebukes him, challenges him, and shares a really easy story. Sometimes people learn in stories better than they learn kind of just reading through stuff. Jesus knew that. That's why he gave us parables. So he goes to David and he says, let me tell you the story. There's a poor man, very, very poor. Him and his family have one little sheep, one little sweet baby sheep. They feed him from the table. They sleep in bed with them, which actually kind of sounds pretty weird and intense, but whatever. That's the family. Okay? It's that kind of family in the neighborhood. So, and then this other family here, they're really rich. They have tons of sheep, tons of bulls. Like they sleep outside. They don't sleep in the bed and whatever. They have tons of stuff, very, very wealthy, very, very rich. The rich family had a visitor come to the house. And instead of taking from all the stuff that the rich guy had, he went and took the one lowly sheep, killed it, prepared it, and served it as a meal. David heard this story, and he was furious. Like, he totally overreacted. This guy needs to die. He needs to replace fourfold what he took. This guy, he's not going to get away with it. And then Nathan looks at him in a moment of wisdom, a moment of honesty, the kind of honesty I hope I get from my friends, says, you are that man, David. You are him. In the midst of this whole situation comes the son Solomon. Solomon goes on to be king. David's getting older, and he's ready to kind of pass off the mantle to his son, pulls him in and says, hey, I'm dying. You're going to be king. Congratulations. And that's what we see here in 1 Kings. Now, this is so great. Solomon falls asleep, has this dream, which God speaks in dreams. Last night I was preparing for this, kind of going over my notes again. I had a dream. I had a dream that I pulled in here, and one of the electrical lines fell on me, okay? But it didn't kill me. It gave me superpowers. And the rest of the dream, I was just flying around zapping people. So I don't know if anyone knows what that means. You can talk to me afterwards. But God came to Solomon in a dream, and this is what he said to him. He said, you're going to be king, and I am a giver of good gifts. I love you. Tell me what you want. Tell me what I can give to you. The genie giving a wish, right? But no, this is God. He actually follows through on the promises, the gifts he says he's going to give, he follows through. So Solomon's like, oh my gosh, I could ask for anything. I could ask for all my enemies to be killed, not in a gruesome way. Maybe they just fall asleep, dead, or maybe they just disappear somehow, like a little Thanos thing, or whatever. My enemies could be gone. I could have all the riches, maybe. I could have all the riches in the world. Everything could be made. People could come from all over to see what I have, what I've accumulated, the wealth. I could help people. I could also maybe have my enemies killed too. I could afford it, or at least buy them off. I could have that. But Solomon instead decides to ask for something unlikely, something that hasn't been asked yet for in the Bible. He asked for wisdom. And he wanted the kind of wisdom that would help him lead his people. The kind of wisdom that as they were coming into circumstances where big, tough, maybe emotional, everything's on the line kind of decisions had to be made. He wasn't going to just go with his gut. He wanted the wisdom to discern what was the right thing to do, what was the wrong thing to do. In this same chapter, in chapter 12, is where we get the famous story of the baby and Solomon. If you don't know the story, a mom came to Solomon and said, hey, this woman here took my baby. This whole thing's nuts, okay? We have a great safety team here at Inland Hills, but imagine if you get in there and like, my baby's gone. That woman has my baby. And then the woman came and was like, no, this is my baby. He went to the king, went to Solomon, and Solomon says, I have wisdom. Okay, I can figure this out. This is what we're going to do. You say it's your baby, she says it's her baby, this is what we're going to do. Bring me a sword, and I'm going to cut the baby in half, and both of you will be able to have a little bit of this cute baby. And the one woman who stole the baby said, sounds great, absolutely, get the sword. And the woman who is actually this child's mom said, no, let her have her. It's better for the baby to live than to die by the sword. And Solomon, in his wisdom, knew that was the mom. See, immediately he's able to put into practice this wisdom that he asked for in order to lead his people, help his people, save his people. Now, here's the thing that I find to be so interesting. It's an easy spot to lose. It's easy to lose sight of what wisdom actually is. It's easy to lose sight of how to get on the path of wisdom, how to become a wise person. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because I think there's opportunities daily for us to be able to be wise. One time I was praying for patience, which I don't have a lot of. My wife knows that. And even from a young age, we're the students in the room. I know there's a lot of them. Raise your hands. All right, there you are. There's any seventh graders in here? First week in here. Hey, welcome. You'll be in here for the rest of your life. One of the things that she knew is that I lacked patience, and so I learned this at a young age, that, when you pray for patience, God doesn't just give you patience. You don't get an Amazon box, at your house with a t-shirt that says patience, and you just wear it. No, I got it. I'm patient. Don't worry about it. That's not how it works. God actually gives you opportunities to be patient. And the same thing with wisdom. You don't get an Amazon box, with a shirt that says wise on it. If I would have ordered it, and I would rip my shirt open right now like Superman, remember the dream, and you'd all know that I was very wise. But that's not how it works. That actually God gives us opportunities to be wise. This is what he says in the book of Proverbs. This is so good. This is where we're going to spend some time today. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Now, I know some of you might think, well, my understanding, you don't know my understanding. It's really good. And we do that a lot. We're making, so I always get criticized for this. I don't know if anyone's a social media person. I always get criticized for liking my own posts. But, listen, sincerely, now there's some people in the room who are like, who cares? Like, whatever. And then there's some people in the room who's like, no, you can't do that. I'm in the camp where I wouldn't post it if I didn't like it, so me liking it shows all of you that I actually support. It's not someone stole my phone and started posting pictures of my kids. I actually like what I posted, I'm going to like it. I think it's a good thing. We like our own understanding. We typically, in the moment at least, now we're talking about wisdom, typically in the moment, we don't say, oh my gosh, this is the wrong decision, we shouldn't be doing this. What are we doing? This is insane. No, we usually rely on our understanding. God's saying, no, don't rely on your own understanding. This is what he says in the next verse. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. And some of you are thinking to yourself, wait, there's more than one path? What's going on here? I thought there was the path. I'm on the path. I'm here at church. I got a big, thick Bible, or at least an app with and I got all the versions downloaded. All right, so even if the Wi-Fi goes out, I'm spiritual. And it's like, oh man, wait, there's multiple paths? Well, and then you start to think, because logically, you'd think, well, am I on the right one or the wrong one? I mean, if his purpose is to help keep us on the right path, then subsequently there has to be paths that aren't the right path. And then you think, well, which path am I on? Wisdom helps us understand that. But wisdom, again, you can't buy it. It doesn't come easily. If I had a blender up here with some cups, and they had labels on them of ingredients, so I was going to make some weird drink and choose someone randomly in the audience, which I'm not going to do. The two cups would say time and experience, that those are the ingredients of wisdom. Wisdom is time and experience. I want to leave this up here for a second. Now, when I say time and experience, I want you to think of a couple things. One, young people do not have time and experience. I am a young person. I have time and experience over my kids, who are like 4 and 3. I have time and experience over a junior high or high schooler. But if I'm sitting in a circle with 30-year-olds, either we're going to do the whole, oh man, we're wise beyond our years, right? Which is another way of saying, we just got it right this one time, so we're the best. That's like saying the Buffalo Bills, who I'm a fan of, is the best team ever because they went to 4 Super Bowls in a row. They lost them all, but it doesn't matter because they went, right? I mean, at least they were there. And we do that thing, right, where it's like, oh no, you're okay, I'm okay, we're wise together. But if I'm honest, I actually need to be sitting around people who have more time and experience than me in order to really get wisdom. Now, here's the thing. It's used in these two opposing ways. I learned that you can use a statement like that wisdom is time and experience, to look at a young person and hold them down. To say, you're not ready yet, stay in your seat, young guy, young girl. We'll let you know when it's time for you to lead. We'll let you know when it's time. You haven't learned enough yet. That's the wrong way. Here's the right way. Wisdom comes with time and experience. That we're able to look at young people, which, by the way, to someone in their 50s, I am a young person. We're able to look at young people, younger than us, and say, you know what, you're going to make mistakes. Hey, you're not there yet. It's okay. Hey, we're going to help you. Wisdom is gotten over time and experience, and me, as a smart person, I want to help give you some time and experience. We tend not to truly understand that in the church world as much as it's understood in the business world. In the business world, mentorship is a huge part of it. I mean, they totally understand how to give off, what you learn, your experiences, what works and what doesn't work. They understand how to hand that off to who's coming up the pipeline. Well, do you know why that is? It's because people who have know that they can't take what they have with them. There was a guy who had a funeral, a big lavish funeral. And he was at the very front of this big funeral processional. And right behind him were all the possessions that he had. On all these different carts were all the gold piled up, all the possessions that he had, all the ornaments and jewels that's been collected from around the world, and a big cart behind him. And then behind that were all of his servants, all of the priests of the temple, all of the leaders and executives and managers in his big organization, and they all followed along. And you know who this guy was? He was Alexander the Great. And he knew something that sometimes we don't know, which is the things we have don't go with us. So it's our responsibility to hand off what we have to others. That's why wisdom, being time and experience, is actually an invitation for us to help other people out. You would maybe think, well, man, looking back, I wouldn't do the same things if I could get the opportunity to. A lot of you may sit there, and if, like me, I'm in my 30s. I look back at my 20s, and I'd say, man, at the time, I thought it was just awesome. But I don't think I would do it the same way again. Why? Because I have time and experience behind me. People who are in their 40s probably look back at their 30s. I'll probably do the same thing when I get there. Those in their 50s look back 10 years before and say, man, I think I would have done things differently. Have you ever gone through old pictures with your kids or with just some young people? You're looking at a picture and you're thinking of the story in that moment. They're looking at the picture and be like, I can't believe you wore that. I can't believe your hair looked like that. But see, that's our responsibility, to help them see that, as you grow up, your life starts to get set on different paths because with time and with experience, you understand things differently. Here's the thing. This is what it says in the book of James, which is one of my favorite books. Jesus' brother-in-law, or not brother-in-law, half-brother, but imagine having Jesus like in your house living there, and it's like, Jesus cleaned the dishes, why don't you? Well, he's perfect, he's zapped them. Jesus did not zap stuff, that was a joke. So James wrote this book, really, really great book, and it was a book to people that were trying to understand the things that Jesus had taught. He left, he's gone now, and so James is kind of compiling all these things to help them understand the things that his half-brother had taught on. And this is one of the things he said, this is what it says. If you need wisdom, ask our generous God. He will give it to you. And this is what it says in the last part. He will not rebuke you for asking. Now, here's the thing. I have been rebuked asking for a whole lot of things in my life. Has anyone ever been rebuked? Where are my brothers and sisters who've been rebuked before? Okay. Where are my rebukers who probably have rebuked a person or two in their time? Okay, exactly. So I have been rebuked many, many times for asking for things that aren't realistic. During my childhood, I did that. Even in my adult years, I do that. But here's the thing. When it comes to asking for wisdom, God wants to give generously, but again, it's not a package that you get, it's opportunities that you get. God is willing to give many opportunities for you to gain wisdom by doing, by living it, and to help kind of decipher what is the right path to take. There's a really smart business guy named Michael Hyatt. He wrote a ton of books, really smart guy, does a podcast. Most business leaders probably have some familiarity with him. Well, a couple years ago, he wrote an article specifically about wisdom. And he's a Christian guy, so he knows some stuff. And he was talking about wisdom and how do you discern a wise person in the business place. So we're taking, biblical, thoughts and how do you apply them to the business world, which he was more than willing to do. And this is how he summed it up. And he referenced King Solomon, and he summed it up this way. You can tell a person's wisdom this way, by how he or she receives instruction and correction. Here's the hardest thing. If you're someone that struggles with listening without being defensive, you will have a hard time finding the wise path. There are many paths we can pick. There's a wise path that God wants to show us. And if we have a problem taking correction without becoming defensive, we will have a hard time finding that path. If you are someone who can't accept responsibility for their actions, you will have a really hard time finding the path of wisdom that God wants to show you, the wise path. And if you're someone who maybe, you hear feedback and you challenge it without delay, they can't even get the sentence out because you already are ready with your rebuttal, you may have a really hard time finding the path, the wise path that leads to wisdom. Now, here's the thing that I find to be so interesting. There's this proverb, which is really, really good. Proverbs 12:15. It's not on the screen, but it's Proverbs 12:15. The way of the fool seems right to them, but the wise listen to advice. Me and my wife went traveling one time. It was before we had kids, which life was very different back then. We went traveling. I did a pastor's retreat at Mariners. So I was one of the pastors there, so we all went on a pastor's retreat. And afterwards, me and my wife, we just bought a new car, and we were coming back from the retreat, and I was like, babe, and it was during summer, let's just get away for a couple days. Let's just go, hop in the car, and go. We went to Paso Robles, which was awesome, and had a great time there. On the way back, though, I wanted to go a different way, a more scenic way, right, because I like to see cool things, and we got a little lost, okay, kind of weird. Wasn't any cell service, and she said that I should stop and ask for directions. And I said, no, I know where I'm going. I don't need to stop and ask the guy for directions. And guess what? It took a long while to get home, and I eventually did stop and ask for directions. And here is the truth of it. Even though I intended to get home, I wanted to get home quickly, that I wasn't going the right way. When I eventually stopped and asked for directions, that someone who knew how to get to where I wanted to go, and he looked at me with confusion, be like, dude, you've been driving the wrong way for like 2 hours. And here's the right path. Only someone who knows the right path can point out when you're wrong, but for those who are getting lost, who are going down the wrong path, very rarely do we know we're going down the wrong path while we're going down it. Here's the thing with wisdom, that our direction, not our intention, determines our destination. Our direction, not our intention, determines our destination. So what does that mean? Let me give you a couple examples. At one time in my life, wanted to really work out. I was watching these Avengers movies, and I was like, man, I want to look like Thor. And I wasn't really working out. Luckily, the last movie, now I do look like Thor. It's awesome. Body of a god. It's great. But, even though I wanted to lose weight and get in a really killer, strong shape, I just decided, maybe, that's not for me. Well, you know what really decided it? The fact that every decision I was making, the direction I was on, if you want to get in great shape, you don't eat a pint of Ben & Jerry's late at night. Even if it's in there, you probably shouldn't buy it in the first place. So I made wrong decisions from the very beginning. Even though I intended to get in great shape, I couldn't. Our directions, not our intention, determines our destination. We're the dads in the room. Raise your hand. All right, I'm a dad. You know what I want? I didn't grow up with a father. My father didn't want to be a dad when I was 8, and he left. And you know what? He really missed out because I'm awesome. So that would have been so cool for him. So he left, and now I'm married, okay? I have 2 kids, 2 boys. And I have a great relationship with my father-in-law, I literally told my wife, I think probably a week ago, man, I wish this is the kind of relationship I had my whole life. I think my life would have turned out differently with that kind of man in my life. And I want to do that for my boys. I want my boys to come to me to ask dating advice. I want them to come to me to ask advice on dating and college. I want them to eventually come to me and say, Dad, I think I want to marry this girl. What do you think? I want to be the wise elder at Thanksgiving and Christmas that's giving wisdom and advice. And you know what? If I want to get to that destination, it's not going to happen by fooling around on their mom. It's not going to happen by putting work and what I'm going to hand over to them possession-wise more important than what I'm handing over to them in the moment in relationship. So my direction, not my intention. I intend to be this great dad, this great father who's revered and respected by my sons and hopefully by their sons. That would be the dream, right? But if I'm not going in that direction, doesn't matter what my intention is, I'm not going to get there. Where are my married people? Where are the married people at? All right? I'm married. I love intimacy. Okay, I'm not going to say more than that, but I love it. When I was getting ready to get married, I got a really great piece of wisdom from one of my mentors. He said, intimacy starts in the morning. Okay? I want to close down the day and enjoy time with my wife. And intimacy is, sitting there together and going through a Bible study together, right? I mean, it's sitting there, it's spiritual intimacy, not just physical intimacy. It's sitting there, going through the Bible together. It's being able to, to spend time together in an intimate way. It's physical. It actually means going out on dates together and enjoying being with the person. I want to enjoy being on dates with my wife as much now as I did when I first started dating her, and as I want to have that same kind of joy 20 years from now. I want to have that. But you know what? If my wife is always treating me like a kid, we're not going to have intimacy in our marriage. If I'm always acting like a kid, we're not going to have intimacy in our marriage. Acting like a kid is, I create just as much work as the kids do. Oh, no, I'm working, I'm doing stuff, and I bring home the cheddar, so babe, you got to do everything else. That's treating her like a mom, and I'm the kid. So it doesn't matter if I want to get to this great destination of intimacy in my marriage. If I'm prioritizing everything else before that, then I'm not going to get there because my direction, not my intention, determines my destination. I don't know if there's any single people in the room, maybe in the studio back there. Okay, we go single people, okay? So here's the thing, single people. When I was single, they did a thing called, it was back in the day, called missionary dating, okay? I don't know if you know what this is. Some people know this, okay? It's when you as a Christian, as a follower of Jesus, you'll just kind of go find whoever, Christian, not Christian, whatever, and then you're going to change them. You have the power to figure this whole thing out. And maybe you'll compromise a little bit. Maybe you'll make, some, allowances that you wouldn't make otherwise, but it's all going to work out in the end. But single people, if you want to have this healthy Christian marriage, dating relationship where you love each other and respect each other and honor each other, it doesn't happen by just dating whoever and doing whatever, whenever, when you're single. Your direction, not your intention, determines your destination. Students, man, I remember when I was in school, I wanted to be the friend, because I like talking, okay? I like talking. I feel like I'm pretty approachable. If you want to talk to me after service, I'd love to meet you. And here's the thing, I wanted to be the friend that other friends could come to and talk to when I was in school. I wanted to be the friend that if they had something going on in their life, they could come to me and talk to me. I want to be the friend that, changes my campus for Jesus. I want students to know the saving power that only comes in Jesus. I want them to know that. And so, if you're going to be about gossip and spreading rumors about people, and if your friends just think you sleeping on Sundays like they do, you're never going to get to the place where you're the trusted friend, or the person that's bringing students to Jesus. Because your direction, not your intention, determines your destination. Here's the thing. I want to take a quick look at Proverbs chapter 7. This is like such a killer passage that illustrates this point so well and what we need as we start to wrap up. King Solomon, is looking out the window of his really tall house, and he's looking out into the city, and he sees this man walking down the road. Now, some might say, like, well, did this actually happen? Is this a story, an illustration? I don't know exactly. It kind of falls in, this poetry place. So maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I think really good stories, just like Jesus used great illustrations to teach his point. He was watching this guy walk down the center road of the town, and he was going in the direction of her house. Now, he was a young guy that lacked sense. That's what Proverbs says. So he doesn't have the chokmah yet. He doesn't have time and experience that are the ingredients of wisdom. He doesn't have it yet. He's young, and that's okay. But he's going down the direction of this gal's house, and everyone knows who she is at that corner. And Solomon, looking from above, knows the path that he is on. This young guy didn't see the path that he was on. He was just walking. He was just doing what he was going to do. But Solomon saw, and he could spot it a mile away. It was predictable. This woman came out and said, "Oh, I was looking for you. I was looking for you, and I found you. Let's go back into my place. My husband's gone. We can spend time together. Like, let's go." And he's probably looking around like, I was just walking down the road. Like, this girl's she wants me to go back to her place. And in his mind, he's thinking, oh my gosh, I'm a rock star. I thought I wasn't famous, but I guess I am. How many followers do I have? I guess I'm more famous than I thought. And he's walking in to the sound, the rock ballad going on in his head. But Solomon from above sees the soundtrack to Jaws, as this guy is walking down a familiar path that's only familiar to those who've walked it, and Solomon has. It goes on to say something really simple, that while he thought he was going in this direction where everything was awesome, it was all going to be great, he was going down a path of death, and only Solomon could see it because he had the wisdom, the experience to. Here's the thing, I want you to write this down. This is going to be verse number 6. If you haven't written it down, make sure you write it down. Verse 6 of chapter 3. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. See, every single person in this room can think, I don't know every single person's life. I know what social media says, doesn't tell the truth. It's a highlight reel, okay? I'm not looking for the highlight reel, I'm looking for the truth. I don't know what the story of your life is, but if you look back, you can probably look at moments where, man, I wish I didn't do that. I wish I had someone in my life at that moment to kind of speak into it a little bit who knew a little bit more than I did. Oh, man, here, like, oh, gosh, I feel like I really missed the ball. I wish I had. Well, I get it. We need people in our life who have more wisdom than we do. We need mentors in our life. You know how I get mentors in my life? Other than the people in my actual circle, like I'd include Eric in that circle. I'd include other pastors at Mariners in that circle. People that I know, people that I could text and call. Like those are people you can pull in to be mentors. You know who else you can pull in? You can go find some awesome person. I hop on Twitter and DM famous people that I think are not just famous for being in a movie, famous because they've done stuff in leadership. They've done stuff in business. They have stuff I want to learn from. And I just say, can I have 15 minutes of your time? I have 3 questions I'd love to ask you. And maybe that forms into a relationship. And boom, now you have a mentor. Maybe for you, it's joining a group. I talked to the groups guy before service. Do you know how easy it is to sign up for a group here? It's super easy. They have stuff outside. It's great. And maybe for you, you've been going through life alone, and you're like, maybe if I had a group of people, not necessarily all the same age as me, man, I'd love to be in a group of diverse people where I can learn from them and get wisdom from them, and I can share I'm going through, and everyone should have those kind of multi-generational relationships in their life. That's why we ask high school kids to be in high school ministry, and we ask adults to be serving in high school ministry, because we need to pass on wisdom to the next group of people. And so even if you're in your 30s, I'm in my 30s, I need to be around people in their 50s, because they know stuff that I don't know. And if you're in your 50s, you're probably at least having lunch now and then with someone in their 60s or 70s because they know stuff that you don't know. Finding that person who can help you, they get into a group or whatever, that can be the life-changing thing. Now, some of you might be thinking, Justin, my name's Justin, by the way, if you didn't catch up before. Justin, you don't know, man. I've been living life, and I've made a lot of mistakes. If I were to give you the laundry list, of ingredients that have gone into the life of my mistakes, it's a dish you wouldn't want to eat. Taking the food analogy probably way too far there. But I've made mistakes and things that I wish I didn't do, I did. And you know what? Maybe I just got to kind of just start where I'm at. I don't think that there's any hope for me to really get the kind of wisdom I should have, as a 30, as a 40, as a 50-year-old or older. Well, let me share this quick story. It's not going to be on the screen, but it's out of the book of Luke. So Jesus and his family went back to their hometown to do one of the Jewish festivals. They have a lot of Jewish festivals, and they were going back to their hometown to do this big Jewish festival. Now they're there, and they're doing the whole thing, and then the family leaves in this big caravan because the whole family goes together. This wasn't like, Mary and Joseph on a donkey, the birth of Jesus thing. There's like the whole family's together, big, caravan of people. So they leave. 3 days later, they notice that they're missing Jesus. Has anyone ever lost a kid before? I have. It's frightening. Okay, it's frightening. And so they notice they're missing Jesus. They go back to find Jesus, and they find him in the temple, holding court with the religious leaders, the teachers, and the parents are like, "Oh my gosh, where have you been? What are you doing?" And he was being obedient, respectful, like, "Where do you think I'd be? I'm in my father's house doing the work." And they're like looking and confused, and they had to look at. Could you imagine being Joseph and Mary? They probably had to look at confusion a lot. And they said, "Well, we're going to leave. We're going to go." And then the writer Luke, who's a doctor, historian, he was hired to research this person, Jesus, wrote in there what I think is one of the most powerful verses. I think for students, it's the most affirming verse for young people. I think for people in their 30s, their 40s, this is the most affirming verse. This is what it says, that Jesus grew in wisdom and stature all the days of his life. Why is that verse so important? Well, it lets everyone know that young people, wisdom starts when you're young. Maybe it's not your parents, you should be asking your parents a ton of stuff. But hopefully there's other adults in your life that are awesome, Jesus-loving people here at church, or friends of your family, and who you're able to get that same kind of wisdom experience from. If you're in your 20s and your 30s and you feel like, oh my gosh, like maybe I missed the boat, maybe I'm too far behind. Know this, that there are two things that can be absolutely true. Where on one hand, we have access to all the things we need to grow in wisdom. We have access to the people. We have access to the places at church. We have access to all the things we need to grow in wisdom and stay on the right path. And when we go off the right path, off the wise path, Jesus has lived a life of wisdom and experience. He knows that journey. He knows the journey of growing from a young age to being wise. He knows the journey of living life with people who've made unwise decisions. We have access to everything we need. And when we make mistakes, Jesus has the wisdom and experience to help us. There's this story that people have thrown around. A guy walking down the road falls into a hole. Starts screaming, "Help, help." And doctor comes by. He's like, "Doctor, help me." And the doctor writes a prescription, throws it in the hole, and walks away. And then next, a pastor comes walking by. And he says, "Pastor, help me, help me." The pastor writes down a prayer, throws it in the hole, and walks away. And then the guy's friend, Bob, comes walking by. Bob, it's me, help me. I'm stuck in this hole. I don't know how to get out of here." Bob jumps in the hole with him. Our guy looks at Bob and says, "Bob, are you stupid? Now we're both in the hole." And Bob looks back at his friend and says, "Yeah, I know, but I've been in this hole before, and I know my way out." Jesus knows wisdom. Your direction, not your intention, determines your destination. I don't know what direction you are pointed in now. I don't know what direction you have been looking at in the past and maybe you just got lost along the way. I don't know if you think the time of changing direction is too far lost, the relationship with your kids are too far lost, the relationship with people at school is too far lost, the relationship with mom and dad is too far lost. I don't know what you think is too far lost, but it is not too far lost because your direction, not your intention, determines your destination. Jesus is walking it with you. He wants to show you the path of wisdom. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, here are your kids. They love you. They want the best for you. They're thankful, and they're wanting to learn more. God, you are good. You are patient. You are kind. You give generously. Thank you. Thank you for being a loving God. Thank you for helping us when we need it. I don't know everyone's story. That's why you're God and I'm not. Help each person have conversation on the way home. Let this be the topic around, in the car, around the dinner table tonight. Let the bold question be, hey, what direction are you heading in? Is it different from your intention? Where do you want to go with your life? Are you on the right path to get there? Let people ask tough questions. Let there be hard answers. Maybe there'll be tears. Maybe there'll be celebration. But God, it'll be true. It'll be honest. It'll be real. We thank you. Praise in your name. Amen.
Thank you so much for watching this message. It is our hopes that it encourages you and uplifts you in the week ahead. We also invite you to join us at one of our Sunday services here at 9, 11, or 5 p.m. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you here soon.